174 members have recorded their votes.
Imran Khan वज़ीर-ए-आज़म नहीं रहे.
On April 9, 2022, a somber tale of cruelty unfolded as the beloved leader of people was unjustly ousted, marking the onset of the darkest chapter in the history of Pakistan.
चेहरों के ऊपर पॉइंट करके शेल फेंक रहे हैं.
पुलिस ने डॉक्टर यासीन राशिद की गाड़ी पर धावा बोल दिया है.
पाकिस्तान और दुनिया भर में देखने और सुनने वालों को अर्श शरीफ का सलाम.
सांसद को गोली लग गई है.
वाटर कैनन मंगवा लिया गया है.
मेरे कपड़े फाड़े उन्होंने खींच के. इन्होंने कुछ भी लाया.
शाबाश शाबाश. ये शैल है, ये हाथ में भी नहीं पकड़ सकते ये वाले.
ये गुल्लू बर्ड फेर रहे हैं.
हमारे पास कुछ भी नहीं है और वो फायरिंग करें.
इमरान खान को गिरफ्तार करके लेके जा रहे हैं.
Grave human rights violations continued, including enforced disappearances, torture, crackdowns on peaceful protests, violence against women, attacks against journalists and media houses. Now, as the tides of time shift towards the call of people's retribution, seeking to dismantle the oppressive system's grip, God willing, on February 8, 2024, by stamping on the bat's mark, vengeance will materialize through the potent force of the vote, a resolute stand against the endured cruelty.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. As we observe the International Day for Human Rights, Pakistan has been seeing its worst human rights violations since last year, May, but even more so now following Imran Khan's abduction rather, on May 9th, 2023. We have with us today Taimur Jhagra, former Minister for PTI firm KP, as well as Barrister Khadija Siddiqi with us. Welcome, both of you. Let me start with you, Taimur. Talk to us about the grossest human rights violations that we can think of, that we can remember in the history of Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum. I guess it's a relevant topic, given that today is International Human Rights Day. Look, Pakistan's history is littered with political engineering experiments, and accompanying those political engineering experiments, there have always been some level of human rights abuses. But what many people say, and I certainly haven't seen in my lifetime, the sort of activity, the sort of action, and the sort of abuse of fundamental rights and human rights that we've seen since last April, and in particular over the last 7 months. It is different to what we've seen before, because I remember the Musharraf emergency, but through that emergency, where there was confrontation with lawyers and there were individual incidents, it was not like this. I don't remember the initial days of the General Zia takeover. But again, from people who've lived through it, they say that the depth and the breadth of what is happening today significantly outscales what happened then. And what is even more pertinent is that what is happening as part of a pre-poll rigging drive that are going to make Pakistan's elections meaningless. There are over 10,000 people arrested since the events of May 9th and 10th. There's 16 of our workers killed during the protests of May 9th and 10th. And neither of that is to say that the arson and the violence on May 9th and 10th is not condemnable. It is. And if there are any people from PTI involved in that, then they should be prosecuted. They should be punished. And if there are people involved from outside PTI, the same. But all of that should happen under the umbrella of the law. And that is what seems to have disappeared over the last 6 or 7 months. Pakistan's law, Pakistan's constitution, and its implementation on ordinary citizens, and in particular, if people happen to be the supporters of one political party. So forget the arrests, forget the sort of police action on protests that we've seen, forget the tear gassing at Zaman Park in March that we saw in the video, forget the farcical trial that Imran Khan is facing at the moment. I want to focus on 3 things that come top of mind that I haven't seen before. First, perhaps because we're a society that needs to do so much for its women, is the sort of shocking scenario of women, some of whom are PTI office bearers and some of whom are just ordinary supporters who have been in jail in Lahore over the last 200 plus days. First, not able to get bail hearings. Then, if they're able to get bail hearings, not able to get their cases concluded. And once they get bail, still unable to get a release from jail. This is not the society that I know. And I'm frankly shocked that outside of the PTI family, our human rights organizations, our women rights organizations, and the international community in Pakistan has not raised this as more of an issue. That's issue number 1. And I'm sure Khadija will talk more to that. Issue number 2 is a whole campaign of enforced disappearances, each of which result either in the person who's been disappeared, once they're back, leave the party, join another party, change their political views, become an approver, or in the case of journalist Imran Riaz Khan, lose his ability to speak. Now, with all due respect, this is not the society that I want to represent me. And again, for something like this to be used as a tool to try and favor one political party over another is something that we've not seen in mainstream Pakistan. We've seen the issue of enforced disappearances. It's a long-standing one in the periphery, in Balochistan, in Fatah, but we've not seen it happen in Peshawar and Islamabad and Lahore and Karachi. And it's been happening over here. And that's unprecedented. And maybe this gives us the opportunity to shine the light on the problem in general and to raise a voice to say no one should be disappeared outside the course of law in Pakistan. And the third thing is the repeat arrests of political leaders, where the law and the action of the police just become a farce. We've had leaders rearrested 16 times, 17 times, 8 times, 10 times. They are arrested in a farcical case. They obtain bail. The moment they obtain bail, they are arrested in a second case. The cycle continues. And until they choose to side with the administration, leave the party, nothing changes for them. This is not about May 9th, because if it were about May 9th, then people who change their political views would not escape all the charges or the worst actions that all those people face who are simply trying to exercise their right to free political choice. And why is this important right now? This is important because not only does Pakistan's constitution guarantee all of us fundamental rights, it also effectively states that the only form of government in Pakistan is to be a constitutional government chosen by the people of Pakistan, and an exercise this sustained, this deep, and this vicious can only be meant to try and alter the choice of the people of Pakistan. And that's something that should not be acceptable to any of us, regardless of our political beliefs, regardless of whichever side of the fence we stand on, or be acceptable to any stakeholders that consider themselves friends of the people of Pakistan. That, I think, in a nutshell, is the sort of situation that we faced, and why people like me, who even when they're facing the course of the law, and we accept that because I think that happens to every politician in Pakistan, but despite doing that, we have to stay in hiding, because we've always looked at the police as a force that is to protect us from criminals. It feels that at this moment we live in a Pakistan where we need legal protection from the police. I guess that's what I'll end on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And Khadija, as I come to you, my first thing that I would like, the sanctity of home, that that's there. Would, as Taimur also hinted on about, like, when he mentioned the Constitution of Pakistan, the freedom of speech, the freedom of association, but more so about the women prisoners that we have, and the precedents that the Supreme Court had already set when it came to, say, Zahir Jafar's mother, and how women do get bail no matter what, doesn't matter about the merit of the course. So let's hear from you about the plight of the women in Pakistan right now.
All right, so coming to the unprecedented circumstances that followed 9th of May, especially for these women, some of them who are office bearers, some of them who are mere party supporters, and who were merely present at the place of occurrence, who were not involved in any sort of rioting, they were unarmed, they had no weapon of offense that has been alleged to them. So these women, they have been suffering for over 8 months. It is very crucial for us to understand, and for the overseas Pakistanis and for the international community to understand that in Pakistan, if you're a female, you are entitled to post-arrest bail under the Section 497 first proviso of the Code of Criminal Procedure. So you're entitled to post-arrest bail irrespective of the crime that you've committed, irrespective of the fact that there is allegedly overwhelming material against you that is incriminatory per se, you are still entitled to it. So the fear of these women is making these the authorities rearrest them even if they get post-arrest bails. So what is happening now is that in the cases of female prisoners that I'm dealing with, their post-arrest bails are not being heard by the Honorable Lahore High Court. It is very, very unfortunate that on the 24th of October, it was fixed for hearing, but it was rescheduled. Then again, on the 8th of November, they were again fixed for hearing and arguments. We were very hopeful. We were extremely hopeful that, today justice will be served and their bails will be adjudicated upon. But they met the same fate. And all of the bails were yet again rescheduled. And the cause list that comes out for the bail hearings gets cancelled all of a sudden. Then again, last week, we went to the office and we said, now it's been over 2 months that these post-arrest bails have been filed in the Lahore High Court. Now they should be fixed. So it turns out that the original bench refused to hear them for some odd reason. And they said that for next week, for this coming week, they will be fixed. On Saturday, I get a message from the Lahore High Court that the bails will be fixed for Monday, 11th of December, that is tomorrow. But then again, after 10 minutes, I get a message again stating that the bails will be rescheduled in the next subsequent bench that had been allotted for these bails. So it is actually a travesty of justice that these bails are actually meeting the fate of consequent delays. If they are heard, the females are not released. Rather, they are nominated in subsequent FIRs, because it is very sad that the state very boldly states that we have around 18 FIRs in Lahore specifically, and we will nominate these females in each and every FIR. So, in a sense, they are actually weakening the main case by nominating these females in subsequent FIRs, because they are actually shattering their own prosecution case. Because for common sense, it's commonsensical that, a female present at one place of occurrence cannot be present somewhere else. So, you can't say that, if Taiba Raja was present, let's say, outside Corps Commander House, she was also present near Liberty at the same time. She was also present at Model Town at the same time in the same FIR. So, the entire case, the entire prosecution case is shrouded in mystery. It is still unclear what exactly is the charges against them, because when the cases were heard, I'll tell you, when they were actually heard for the first time in the Lahore High Court, the honorable bench focused on some of the very, very, very pertinent and very, very crucial aspects of the case, of the prosecution case. And that, in a sense, shattered the entire case. So, the bench asked for a few questions pertaining to the prosecution case, and the state, who claims to have over 600 videos of the occurrence and claims to have nominated people as per geofencing. They have overwhelming evidence as to the call records of the females and all the people who were present over there, but they were speechless in front of the court. They were stumbling with the pages. They were stumbling in order to, see what overwhelming evidence they had on these women. So eventually what happened was that the 9 bails that were decided on 18th of October in the Lahore High Court, they were granted. All of the bails were granted and none were refused. None were dismissed by the Honorable High Court on that day. And then subsequent to that, no further bail was allowed to be heard specifically for this 9th May Corps Commander House attack. So it is very unfortunate that these women are suffering continuously under the garb of accountability, but we don't see any accountability. I personally see it as a means of keeping them behind bars solely for the reason because they are afraid. They are afraid of the voices of these females, because the day they come out, they are going to tell each and everything of whatever happened with them, how they were treated. So that fear is not letting them come out on post-arrest bails, and that fear is actually, in a sense, making them break all sorts of laws, all sorts of constitutional guarantees. And it is also very unfortunate that the Supreme Court is not interfering under these extreme, grave human rights violations that these women are facing. The Supreme Court is the custodian of our rights, the custodian of our fundamental rights, but still, the dignity of these women has been violated over and over again, and it fails to be protected by the Honorable Supreme Court. So we really look up to the Supreme Court, and we really hope that we are just demanding one thing. We are demanding a fair access to the justice system, a fair access to be heard, a right to be heard. We are demanding that our right to fair trial enshrined under the Constitution is being allowed to us. That essentially is being stripped off currently. It is being continuously stripped off. We saw recently Khadija Shah got a bail from the Lahore High Court. She was not allowed to come out. She was then nominated in subsequent FIRs. Then again, she got bails in subsequent FIRs. And then she is now currently behind bars under an NP order. So, what are they trying to do? It is, in a sense, a continuous attempt to keep them behind bars because of the fear that these women, they are politically aware. They are strong, independent women who have a voice. And their voice is the biggest fear, I believe. And I feel that these women, they're not only political aware, they are politically aware, they are also aware of the fact that this entire 9th May farce is it's a game plan. It's actually a red flag that, unless or until these women, they don't bow down, they don't give a statement against the PTI leaders, nominating them in subsequent cases, that, look, if they give a statement stating that we came to the place of occurrence, we came to protest in front of the Corps Commander House primarily because we were invited by one of the leaders of PTI, and they nominate some of them. They nominate either Dr. Yasmin Rashid or they nominate Mahmood Rashid. They will be let go. They will be allowed to go scot-free. So imagine the level of prosecution, state prosecution, that this is their sole way out. Do a press conference if you are a parliamentarian, an ex-parliamentarian, or if you're not an ex-parliamentarian, we are giving you this way out of actually nominating PTI leaders that you came on their behest. They invited you to come and protest. They invited you to come in front of the Corps Commander House, get violent, do things. So they simply say that first thing foremost, we were present over there. We were not violent. We were not armed. We did not do anything against the state. We were merely exercising our right to peaceful protest, which is a fundamental right enshrined under the Constitution. Whatever transpired further on was not anything planned by them, not at all. So, all these allegations that can't be proved. Hence, they are just being kept behind bars, one FIR after another, one case after another. So, these are all frivolous charges. These are not terrorists. They have no previous criminal record. They have never been involved in any criminal case that, you somehow all of a sudden after 9th May, you tag them as terrorists. They are not terrorists. They are women entrepreneurs. They are journalists. There are women, they're housewives. So, you are actually making people against you. These are peaceful people. They have nothing against the state. They love our country. Just talk to them and, you will realize that they love their country. They can't do anything against their country. So everything that is currently unfolding is very, very unfortunate. And I think it is part of the, game, as Taimur bhai just mentioned, that they don't want a level playing field for PTI at all. So let's hope for better days to come, because unless or until these women are allowed to come out, and unless or until political leaders are allowed to come and contest elections fairly, nothing can happen fairly, and it will be part of a pre-polled rigging plan.
And that's where I'm gonna take you guys towards now. So I need both of your opinions about that. As you both of you mentioned, the pre-poll rigging part, we talked about, the game plan, the false flag. Talk to me about how this is going to impact the upcoming elections that are scheduled for the 8th of February next year. Is this a way, do you think, to somehow manipulate the vote, manipulate the results of the elections? Start with Taimur bhai, and then we're going to go on to Khadija. Ji.
I guess the very simple answer to that can be found through asking a question, and that question simply being, who will actually believe in the credibility of elections that are held in an atmosphere in which the state is carrying out so much illegal activity that is clearly intended to suppress the intent of people who want to vote a particular way? Who's going to believe it? Right? Khadija just narrated the blatant disregard for the law in keeping a bunch of professional women in place, or women who in jail, or women who simply raised in a country that doesn't encourage women to become part of the political process, women who actually used that right, and for me became examples of how women can actually lead a drive, right, to be more politically active. If the price for that is to be behind bars for 200 plus days, not knowing when the law will reappear behind dark clouds to be able to set you free, it's a very high price to pay, right? If the price for people who want to stay aligned to PTI and want to contest elections is that they somehow have to dodge, let me even say allegedly, right, the law enforcement agencies of the state, so that they're not enforced disappeared. Because if they are, then it is very unlikely that they'll be able to resist the demands on them to change political party, because let's face it, none of us are trained militants that we're able to sustain being incarcerated outside the system of the law. And we've maybe had around 40 to 50 prominent PTI leaders and journalists who've been disappeared outside of the law. If that is such a major tool in trying to get elections outcomes to go in a certain way, then who's going to believe those elections, right? If the entire FIR process is going to be made a joke, and people who are actually arrested under the law rather than through enforced disappearances become a part of an arrest process and are arrested 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, 17 times. I think that's the record that Chaudhry Parvez Ilahi has set, our president. Then who's going to believe the results of those elections? And I think that's where it's important, as Khadija said, and I'll respectfully frame it in a different way, that the Supreme Court take note of this. That the Election Commission take note of this, that human rights organizations actually speak out more than they have. For the longest time they didn't. And then take the case of women prisoners. I think some of them released a statement each, simply to tick a box. Is that enough? Right? Because all that does is create a vicious cycle that will never end. Because one day this will end, and everyone who's been through it will end up saying, we now want our revenge. And where's the Nelson Mandela going to come from, who's going to say, no, the thirst for revenge needs to be set aside, and we somehow need to move on. Maybe we can move on. I hope we can move on, right? But the longer this continues, the more difficult it will be. So I think human rights organizations need to speak. And I think that those in the diplomatic community and in the international community who tend to pass statements saying, yes, we support a free and fair election process, it's one thing to say it, right? And don't interfere in our internal affairs, but please do understand. Don't expect the people of Pakistan to think of you as friends if you abet a process that's actually part of the most sustained violation of human and fundamental rights in the history of Pakistan. Because contrast this to any martial law. In a martial law, you have a takeover overnight, and then the administrations are told the next morning, continue business as usual. In today's situation, the judicial system has disappeared for 7 months plus, as Khadija said. The police and the civil administration are acting as more political than any political party in trying to look at PTI as the opposition. And you know what the silver lining in all of this is? The silver lining is what has been happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa over the last 2 weeks or so. People coming out despite all this. in convention after convention, peacefully, simply to exercise their political rights. And why is that important? Because it actually shows that this political party, Imran Khan's political party, is a peaceful force which is supported by the vast majority of Pakistanis. And whereas those Pakistanis were living under fear for a few months, they are now changing their behavior and coming out to express their support peacefully. But if that is the case, then this party, Imran Khan's party, must have access to the judicial system in an impartial way and must have access to the electoral process as part of a level playing field. Because without that, I'm afraid all we will have is an election process that will be an election in name only, and that will solve nothing. And that's something that I don't want, not just as a PTI leader, but as a patriotic Pakistani. Let some other party win, but let it be so that there are no accusations of bias. Because if that happens, then for Pakistan to stage the economic and political recovery that it needs, it will not happen. And whenever this campaign of human rights abuses ends, there will, in that case, be too much bitterness for it to be easily resolved. Trust me, we should all pray. None of us want that. And everyone who can play a role to end that should play a role to end that. Thank you.
Thank you, Taimur. Barrister Khadija, talk to me about the legal aspect of it, the role of the courts about the upcoming elections and what's going on.
All right. Okay, so I'll firstly talk about the fact that these women who are still currently behind bars, I'll talk about the fact that in Islamabad recently we saw that a political worker, Shandana, she was released after she gave an undertaking in the Islamabad High Court that she will not speak unless or until her trial concludes. So that was, one way to get at least secure her release. So over here, what is happening in the Lahore High Court, at least the judges need to take a stand. They are not helpless. The judges in Pakistan are not helpless. They know what the law states. They can guarantee, they can ensure freedom of these people who are unjustly behind bars for over 200 days. So I feel that only in Lahore, Kot Lakhpat jail, these 15 women are still behind bars. In arrest everywhere in Islamabad, in Peshawar, all those who were arrested per se were released subsequently after a month or two, but they were released. And the courts can ensure that these women are released once they are granted bail, because everything that happens after the grant of bail is illegal. Every subsequent nomination is per se illegal. So what I want to shed light is on that the treatment that is being meted out to these women is not only unfortunate, but it will actually have very long lasting impact on the future or political future of Pakistan. Because what essentially they want to do is that instill so much fear in people that these voices are stifled, that women in the future do not think about entering politics, do not think about using their right to stand in the parliament, let's say, using their right to peacefully protest. So this entire thing is just to create that atmosphere of fear, I feel. And the women have showed it. They have showed it. They are not ready to bow down to injustice. They are not ready to bow down to give a false statement in the court of law against anyone, because that statement ultimately will be not be based on truth. So they are not willing to bow down. So the people I'm representing, they are very, very strong. They are not willing to surrender at all. They just want their bails to be heard. They just want free and fair access to justice. That is their fundamental right. So I feel that in this entire circumstances that we're currently facing, let's say, for example, in Lahore, just taking out a PTI flag is an offense nowadays. You can't even talk about Imran Khan or supporting PTI in any public place. No matter what, there is that atmosphere of fear, and that has been instilled post of 9th May, that you cannot name this party, you will be arrested, your houses will be ransacked, your property will be damaged, your family will be arrested. You know, in criminal law, there's this very important and very crucial aspect that criminal liability is only specific to the person who has committed the criminal offense. So what essentially they're doing now is, what they have been doing for the past 20 months, what they've been doing is that if the female is not at home, they will arrest the husband of the female, they will arrest the minors, they will arrest whosoever they can do to put so much pressure, to put so much, pose such a big threat on the family that eventually they will surrender, that, okay, don't arrest each and every person of the family, we will surrender to the law. But what happened after surrendering to the law? The law was never in place. When will we actually see that the law is being implemented in its true letter and spirit? We have not been seeing that post of 9th of May. We have been seeing utter helplessness. We have been seeing lawlessness. And I'm being a lawyer, it is very, very painful that we are willing to take up their cases. We are fighting their cases in the court of law, but the judges are not willing to take a stand. It is very, very heartbreaking that after the first 9 bails were allowed, no other bails are being allowed to be heard. Why is there so much fear? What is the fear about? There is just one thing that we demand: access to justice. If that is being continuously hampered, our rights guaranteed under the Constitution are being stifled, they've been shattered completely. So, you know, these families, they are not just families. These people, they are mentally suffering. The families are mentally suffering. So what exactly are going to tell their future generations? You are actually crushing all of them. You are crushing their children. Their children are sabotaged. Their children are mentally so disturbed, so distressed. I know families, I have talked to them, and they're like, we can't take this anymore. We can't take this anymore. If we don't survive, tell our mothers that, we love them too much. So, I tell them, and I, psychologically tell them, give them some counseling that this is not the way out. You need to have strong nerves, steel nerves. But for how long? It's already been over 200 days. How can these families live without their mothers and even the men who were sole breadwinners of their families? I'm doing a case of this man who belongs to a very disadvantaged family, who has young children as young as 2-3. So his daughters are craving to meet their father. And what was his father doing over there? He was doing gardening in a house near Kant, near the court commander house. So imagine, his number came under geofencing and he's still behind bars because of that. So there are cases which, when unfold, when people will actually have gain the strength to talk about them, right now they're not willing to talk because they're so afraid, they're so scared that the police will ransack their houses and arrest them if they speak up. So because of that fear, they're not speaking up. But when these cases, when these saddening stories of injustice will unfold, many things will be told to people. So I think before it's high time, people in Pakistan, across the political board, no matter what party you belong to, at least be human enough to raise a voice for them, because they could be your own sister, they could be your own mother, they could be your own daughters. So raise a voice for them right now before it is too late. So I just want to request people of Pakistan, I want to request these organizations who have been observing silence on these cases, who just gave one statement and thought that their work was over. You actually need to follow these cases, pursue these cases in court. I've never seen them standing in court. I've never seen them taking updates from us. Why is that so? Are these not women enough for your support? For them to come out and to be part of our because they've not actually committed any crime. What are they behind bars for? There is no crime that they've committed. So we don't say that, just let them out. We just say let the bails be decided, let the justice be seen to be done. So I'm really hopeful that things do get better. And as Taimur bhai always keeps encouraging us, keeps motivating us, and he has a very positive mindset towards the entire scenario. And this is needed, but we're also hopeful that things do get better for the political future of Pakistan, because if this continues, then we don't see anything better happening in February as well.
Thank you so much, Khadija, for your time. Thank you so much, Taimur bhai. The human rights crisis in Pakistan is real. It is not just an internal matter anymore. It concerns the international community as well. This is not a sustainable form of running a country. The people of Pakistan deserve to be heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.